Hello, and welcome to today's webinar titled Hands-on Training Using the Copeland Mobile App for Troubleshooting, Cross-Referencing, Replacements, and More, brought to you by Copeland. My name is Kate Schwederman, and I will be your moderator for today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. Please note that this presentation's audio is provided by phone or through your computer sound system. In addition, you may type questions that you may have into the text area and hit send in the Q&A panel throughout the webinar. We will answer questions at the end and send out answers to questions that we may not get to in the coming days. If you'd like to revisit key sections of today's webinar, it will be available on demand at e360hub.copeland.com/webinars a few days after this live event. You'll also receive an email in the next few days with a link to the recorded event. Discussing today's topic will be James Stevenson, Copeland's Senior Technical Sales Engineer. Since 1997, James Stevenson has been an integral part of the Copeland team, where he now serves as Senior Technical Sales Engineer. His career with the company began in the Integrated Product Development Laboratory, where he excelled as a project technician before moving into the Product Evaluation Laboratory. There, James conducted life tests and production audit testing, building a strong foundation in product performance and reliability. In his current role, James leverages his extensive technical background to support OEM customers, providing expert guidance and solutions that bridge engineering and sales. Complementing his hands-on experience, James holds a certificate in HVACR from ITT Technical Institute. John Roberts, Copeland Senior Technical Sales Engineer, is our other presenter for today's webinar. He's a valued member of Copeland's engineering service team, bringing years of hands-on and technical experience in the HVACR industry. His journey began in the field as a technician, where he developed a deep understanding of system design, installation, and troubleshooting. Over time, John transitioned into an on-site classroom trainer role, sharing his practical knowledge and helping to develop the next generation of HVACR professionals. Today, John supports contractors, wholesalers, and service teams across multiple regions, providing advanced technical guidance, system diagnostics, expertise, and training on Copeland's latest products and innovations. All day, these two are fielding calls, so I'm excited to have these two experts walk us through some of the key features of Copeland Mobile. So I'll hand it off to James to kick us off here.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate the introductions. This is James Stevenson here with John. We're going to go through Copeland Mobile with you today, and we appreciate you joining us and taking the time to learn about this great app offered by Copeland. John and I have had the opportunity to use this tool extensively, so very familiar with it, and we will try to save some time at the end of this presentation so we can discuss or offer up a Q&A session. So the great thing about this app is wherever you are, if you're on the roof, if you're in your office or in a basement, wherever you are, this app can be available for troubleshooting and diagnosing, quickly accessing product and job information wherever you're at.
Good morning, everybody. This is John speaking. Just want to let you know there's a lot of different ways you can get to the Copeland Mobile App. You'll see on your screen now on the left, bottom left, there's a QR code that you can scan, and it could take you to the app. It's right directly that way. Other ways are through the App Store and Google Play, or you could go straight through the URL as you're seeing here on the screen right now. As James mentioned, this app is designed around a phone use for the service technicians in the field. However, James and I and other internal employees, we use a desktop version, which is just as good, and we're going to be showing some examples out of the desktop version today. The main points we'll hit on today's webinar is going to be the Scout AI feature, also a troubleshooting feature that we'll go through on how to troubleshoot Copeland equipment, a few minutes on our cross-referencing of the Copeland models, including compressors, condensing units, and even competitor models, and finally, where to buy. I'll start out, we'll talk a little bit about Scout, and we'll get into some demos here quickly. As I mentioned, Scout is an AI feature that is a good starting point when it comes to where do I start with an app. And when you're a gentleman of a certain age, like myself, apps back in the day were just little plates of food that would come out before your main course, such as maybe like a mozzarella stick or Crab Rangoon. What do you think of that, James?
Crab Rangoon.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Anyway,
Sounds great.
nowadays we're using apps. That's where we're at. And if you're not using an app like Copeland Mobile or something similar, you are at a disadvantage in the field. All this information that you had to call in for at one time is now at your fingertips. And hopefully after today, you'll have a rough idea how to get to some of that stuff. But Scout is a good starting point where it's similar to a keyword search that you'd see on Google or somewhere on the internet. Where it'll take you to different parts of Copeland publications that have been out over the years based on your search criteria.
We're also going to cover some troubleshooting today. So one of the great features of this app is the opportunity to enter a Copeland model that you might be working on, that you're having issues with, or you just need some information on, is it running correctly? Is it pulling the correct amount of amp draws? Is it applied correctly? This app can tell you everything about a specific model that you enter or scan so that you can be sure that it is operating as advertised. So that's a great feature of this app is troubleshooting. And what else are we going to cover today?
Cross-referencing. As I mentioned before, you have the ability to go straight. You're seeing a good shot of what this home screen looks like on your phone. The cross-referencing feature can go directly to and cross, like I said, existing Copeland models, obsolete Copeland models, as well as competitive models just by entering a model number.
All right. We're also going to talk about the where to buy feature. This is a very great feature of this app, because when you're on a job site and you know that you need a specific part, you can enter that. You can use the model number to find the associated parts. And we are going to show you how to find where those parts are available nearest you so that you can get the equipment back up and running as soon as possible. And you do also have the option. There's a wish list option. You can see the shopping cart in the upper right-hand corner where you can save it for later, and it will save that for you so you can revisit it at a later time.
All right. I think at this point, we're going to go ahead into a live demo, which we're going to show you some of these things that we've just hit on briefly.
And our first demo is going to be...
It's going to be on the Scout feature, yes. As I mentioned before, when we were putting this together, we were looking for starting points. And the beauty of Copeland Mobile is whatever brings you to use an app like Copeland Mobile is a great place to start. Whether, as James mentioned, it's searching for publications or cross-referencing or finding a part and where to buy it. The Scout feature specifically is a great place to start when you really don't know what you're looking for completely. The scenario we came up, what I'm talking about is describing is a scenario we're going to go through today is a situation where, hey, I'm a contractor and I'm headed out today to work on a residential condensing unit that happens to contain 410A refrigerant. I know that on my way out there. And just before I go, I just wanted to do some research on like what are options for 410A or what other refrigerants are similar to 410A. That's just a scenario for Scout. So I just clicked that Scout tab, and right in here in this bar, I'm going to do some remedial typing. And it is what
refrigerant is similar to 410A? A great starting point, as John mentioned. Sometimes you get in here, you don't know exactly.
Spell similar in front of a million people right now.
Well done.
That's how confident I am. Okay. So you don't have to be too specific with your punctuation and whatnot, but just a general question usually brings back a general answer. You see Scouts thinking about it now. And I think most folks know by now R410A is kind of a special refrigerant. It's nothing quite like it. It's got a very high pressure range. So there is not really a replacement for it. It is not a retrofit refrigerant in any way, but there are refrigerants that are used in similar situations. It does list some of that, mostly the A2L versions, of the refrigerants here. What is the nicest feature? It brought me right into a link to a document that Copeland has published for years and years called our refrigerants and lubricants approved list. If you click on that, it takes you right to it. And we know this form internally is our 93-11 form. I think it's down here at the bottom. Revision dates are at the bottom. You always want to make sure you have a up-to-date version or at least a recent version. And the way the form is set up is It's got all the different Copeland approved refrigerants down the left-hand side. And then classifications of these refrigerants. You see what I used to call the old guard refrigerants, the 3 refrigerants that existed when I started here, and then all the other different blended refrigerants and other refrigerants that came on the scene since then. The classification of these is non-flammable A1 refrigerants, global warming potential, if that's something you're into. This column is interesting because it just basically gives you what these newer blended refrigerants were basically replacement refrigerants were similar to in their temperature and properties as far as the older refrigerants go. You'll see different applications that they're commonly used in. Finally, they'll get into the lubricant choices. These are the preferred lubricants. Back in the day when we were using chlorine in refrigerants, we used mineral oil. As we started removing the chlorine out, we went to our alkyl benzene finally with POE, which if you notice on this form is actually backward compatible with a lot of the different refrigerants that are used out there now. Finally, over here in the comment section, it's just a little bit about each refrigerant, phase out dates of 12 and 502. Also, some trade names. Sometimes you'll see these refrigerants are actually their chemical name, and then you'll have a trade name. Whoever makes them sometimes uses that name, and a little different information about each one. Finally, it finishes off with some information on the lubricants and what they're used with, and then some different information of how about what your blend should be when you're retrofitting. So, real quick way to get into a lot of information just from that one scout lead-in, if you will. Staying on that subject to 410A and that compressor that we were going to go work on today, now I actually have some specific information here. I can go straight to the search feature here and type in the model of the compressor I'm going to work on today. That happens to be a ZP 20K5E-PFE. I'm going to bring that up. And I can see here that that compressor is only rated for 410A. So that's what I'll choose here in the application. All right. And so what we're going to go out here to do is figure out what's going on with this compressor. I'm going to turn it over to James here to get into the troubleshooting portion.
All right. So we're on this job. This compressor is installed in this residential AC system and it will not start. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, you have a lot of options to choose from as far as performance, electrical and mechanical. What we're going to do today is we're actually going to choose a troubleshooting tab. So when we got on the job site, we knew that this compressor was not running. So we're going to start our troubleshooting with Copeland Mobile from this point. So Copeland Mobile is going to ask you to input your observations. So when we start off, they want us to check our voltage, and we checked that, and we noticed that we did have proper voltage at the compressor, but we did not have any amp draw when power was applied. So we checked our amp draw. We did not have any amps. So our next input would be, are the windings okay? Well, we found that we did have improper resistance. So we are prompted to check our wiring. Is it wired correctly? We verified that it is in fact wired correct and that our electrical connections are good.
Let me guess. I'll bet the start components are good too, James.
Well, they're okay. So yes, we're going to verify our start components as well. So these are items that Copeland Mobile is going to prompt you to verify so that it can properly diagnose what's going on. Right. Are the start components okay? We verified that they are.
Yeah, not just they're present, but they're checked out. Their values are okay.
So, and we are going to discuss those items a little bit further in a second. Is this compressor properly applied? Yes, this is an air conditioning compressor in an air conditioning system, so it's not being used outside its design. Do you hear any buzzing from the compressor? Well, when power is applied, we did not hear anything. So that is our final observation to input into the troubleshooting. And we're going to hit submit, which is going to show us what our observations were. And then it's going to give us a list of recommendations. So our first recommendation is going to be a compressor replacement. However, the second bullet point, allowing time for the compressor protector to reset. This is this is an important thing to do. You could get some very weird resistance readings if the internal protector on this particular model has opened. So for this example, we're going to talk about replacing this compressor.
All right. Yes, we're going to determine that based on the troubleshooting information, we're going to go ahead and replace this compressor today. So like I said, once again, we're just under that model we searched earlier. We don't have to go very far to see what this model actually crosses to. Is it an active model? Is it obsolete? Let's see what we got here. So when we hit the cross-reference tab over here on the left, you'll see that model that we entered earlier up at the top. That's the current model. And then it lists underneath here the preferred replacement, which actually is slightly different. It's a ZP21 LXE model. Also, it's showing a bunch of other compressors here that would work in that application, so to speak. You'll see here the like-for-like model is available minus the bill of material number. This 800 number just showing that this is what the model number you'll get through a wholesaler or the aftermarket. The 130 would designate it's on either a Copeland condensing unit or sold to a Copeland OEM, typically the original model. So once again, everybody likes like for like. Rather than go right to this preferred replacement, I'd rather go right with the same compressor that I have, which most people do like to do. From there, I'm going to see who has this compressor. I hit the in stock button. It's going to bring up that like for like, and it's going to bring up some comparisons between, these are the same compressors. So there's not really much to show here at this point. We're going to circle back to this here in a minute. But if I go down here to this where to buy feature, it's going to show me who has this compressor in stock and where I can get it. First thing I have to do is pay attention to what I'm asking about here. Once again, it put that preferred replacement model in here rather than the like for like. So once again, I'll go up here and choose this like for like model, which is a super session, which is a fancy word for the compressor that replaces the compressor before it. And you can use that too if you like. So you can supersede all day if you like. But what we're showing here is that like for like model. I'm going to enter the zip code that my job site is in. And finally, I'm going to hit the show in stock. Who has this thing? Okay, we're located here in the garden spot of Ohio, Sydney, Ohio. So we're 202 miles away from this model. So maybe I will, at this point, I'm going to look at that preferred replacement and see if I can get something that's a little closer so I can get this changed out today. So once again, not moving far away, go back up to that replacement model, choose that first preferred replacement, if you remember, that ZP21 LXE PFE, and do the same exact thing, okay? Once again, I've got my zip code entered, show in stock button is clicked, find wholesaler. Okay, well, that works. That here is in Dayton, Ohio, which is just 32 miles down the road. This looks like a better option for me because I can get it done today for this customer. So what I'm going to do there is before I get too far away, I'm going to compare these models, because they're not the exact same model. What is the differences? So I hit that. I'm going to go back there one time and hit that. So we see what model I hit, what number I hit this particular key here. Sorry about that. Now it's showing a side-by-side comparison of the original model and the replacement, preferred replacement. The beauty of this here is it's all on the same screen. I don't have to have another screen open to compare them. However, I will mention that you can open as many Copeland mobile screens as you need to, and quite often I'll have more than one open on my desk. So once again, I'm going to compare these. It shows the ratings, if you will, rated the same exact voltage and phase, refrigerant, and then the application is identical. Performance, also identical, BTUs per hour. So things is going to cool the same way as the original did. It's got the rating condition where these compressors are rated at to get that capacity, if you will. The power is, you're seeing here, there's some differences here in color. Green meaning it's identical, yellow meaning there's some slight differences, and finally, if you see up here, red is a significant difference. So it brings your eyes directly to what the differences are, which is handy. You can get right here to the full performance sheets right underneath these PDFs. So I got my efficiency and my performance here, go down to mechanical. Also important stuff for the working guy. Is this thing going to fit in here? Okay. I do have a significant difference in dimension, same height, same length, same width. The height is actually, looks like 0.4 of an inch shorter. So that has been identified as significant difference here. The most important thing I would think is the footprint's the same. And also the tubing connection's the same. We know the original compressor came with a molded plug. We get back into here, we see it, the oils are the same and the oil charge, whatnot. The weight is listed here, very similar. Finally, electrical. We also mentioned the physical drawings of the compressor. If you want to see, compare them visually, like what they look like, that's right there underneath that mechanical tab, the drawings of the compressor. Other important stuff for the service guys is electrical. It sees this RLA value, which Copeland uses to choose contactors and wire sizes and whatnot. I see that my RLA value is actually slightly lower, so I'm good with my contactor and my wires. When I get into my starting components, it does call out a start cap. These ZP20s, typically you don't see start cap with them, but it will call one out for, in case you're a scenario where you need that. They're identical, luckily. Run caps look the same. If you would use a start cap, obviously you need a relay to bring it in and out. You got that. And finally, the winding resistance is slightly different. So if I were to troubleshoot this new model in the future, I'd be keyed in there to say, hey, I'm looking at a different winding resistance here. Finally, a very useful tool is that what's this thing coming with? What's in the box per se? So this new model, that LXE model, is going to come in with its own mounting grommets and with its own molded plug. So we know that I'm going to get a new one here to replace that existing one, which is always a good idea. They're actually not meant to go on and off several times. So that's a good thing that you're getting a new one there. So that's a successful cross. And what I point out is it's not just a cross on capacity where this thing pumps exactly the same way as the old compressor will. I call this a multi-point cross where I'm looking at the capacity, I'm looking at mounting, electrical information. That's what I consider a good cross, not just one point. And with that, I'll let James take you to the next feature.
All right. What are we going to cover next? One thing I did want to hit on is when you're in this troubleshooting tab where John and I started with this, we were prompted to check winding resistance on that compressor. So we are still under the original ZP20K5E, and under electrical on the left side of the screen, it does provide what the winding resistance should be. So when you are prompted in the troubleshooting, keep in mind the information that they may be asking for on winding resistance is going to be available to you.
That's a good point.
Under that model and on the left side of the screen. So one of the things I did want to talk about was a good time to talk about condensing units.
Absolutely.
So one of the things, or one of the items that we discuss quite a bit is Copeland condensing units. And for this example, I'm going to use an M6 KP, a smaller Copeland condensing unit. And one thing to be aware of is that the majority of Copeland units do not come pre-charged. They usually have a nitrogen charge in them because applications, line lengths, they vary. And as you can see, this is a multi-refrigerant unit. So it would make it very difficult to be pre-charged. However, a question that does come up is, what is the charge amount for this unit? Well, you don't always know because there's a lot of variables. However, even with those variables, inside this app on this particular unit, you can look at the mechanical so you know the length, height, and width. Again, like John mentioned earlier, we need to know if this equipment's going to fit where we're going to be putting it. The electrical information, performance, but one of my favorite features is the reference drawings that are available on the mobile app for Copeland condensing units. So we're going to pull the reference drawing for this M6 unit. And one thing that we talked about earlier was the identifiers. So you can look on here and see what the unit looks like, transducer location. It does come with a base valve, electronic unit controller. This is a single fan unit. But back to refrigerant charge, on the right side of the drawing, you will see the pump down capacity at 90%. So this is taken into account the receiver capacity as well as some capacity in the condenser coil. So
Yeah, just to add to that, this is a very common question that comes in on our service line, probably on a daily basis, is I have this condensing unit and what refrigerant's in it. So as James mentioned, there's really no way for us to identify the refrigerant, but I could tell you what the refrigerants it's used with, and then the capacity, as James mentioned, of the condenser coil, and in this case, the receiver that's on this unit. So when the unit goes into a pump down cycle and all the refrigerant is forced from the low side into the high side, the values that are shown up here on the top right, based on the refrigerant you're using, is what those vessels will hold. So very commonly asked question, and this is something that's right at your fingertips on Copeland Mobile. So.
This is a great resource. This is, like I said, without the, when units aren't pre-charged, this question can come up. So there's some good information to be had in this, so any Copeland unit that you put in there, you will find these options on the left side of the screen: wiring diagrams, reference parts, reference drawing, service parts. So another feature we're going to move on to in the app that is very helpful is fault finder. So we're going to touch on this one briefly. As you can see, what populates when you go to the fault finder is the different compressor and condensing unit modules that are applied today. And for this example, we were going to use the XCM25D, and it actually shows you a picture of it. And this is the controller of the Copeland X-Line units. So if you are on a job site and you have an X-Line unit that is giving you a code, you can choose this option and go through and see what each one of those codes that's displayed on the controller and the definition behind it. And it'll give you some direction to go on what you're seeing so that you can troubleshoot a little more quickly. So as you can see, this controller can give you a lot of feedback. So we saw that there was an E44 on this. So I was like, we have a discharge line temperature issue and it is locked out on it. So the app will actually tell you that, we need to find out what the cause of that high DLT is. But it also tells us that we could have a faulty sensor, and you do have the option to check that sensor and the value of it to ensure that it is in fact correct. And the beauty of this is at the top of the screen, you'll see that you have an option to go to the document directly related to this controller. And you can launch it from the app. And since we practiced a little bit on this, it actually took me directly to the page that shows you the resistance values for the temperature sensor, specifically DLT. So
it's showing just what, if you would wanted to check this sensor, you would use this temperature in Fahrenheit. And I tell most folks to do, if they'd like to check it, is get a little cup full of ice water and set the sensor in there and use your ohm-meter, and you should get something very near to 280.82 kilo ohms. So, but that's, yeah. And then, like I said, you would, all the other, this is in the bulletin that James brought up. It breaks down all of the codes that you would get they show you in Copeland Mobile, but it also has some possible fixes to that. And as James mentioned, there's a lot of different codes on the X-Line controller. It's a very, very, very sensitive controller. Most of the time when I'm working with folks that are working with X-Line, if they don't see some type of code on their controller, then typically their problem is located outside of the condensing unit.
Yes, this is a very intuitive controller, and that was just a quick example of how you can use the Fault Finder app, which is located right. You're going to see that on the home screen as soon as you open it on mobile or on the desktop version. One thing that another feature is, if we covered something today and you needed a little bit more information on it, we are going to have a Q&A session. But inside here, we do have video tutorials that have already been made for the check and charge and for Copeland Mobile. So you'll see that there is a library of instructional videos that have been made for how how to cross-reference, how to troubleshoot, where to buy, a lot of different options. So if there's something in here that we didn't cover and you want to visit, feel free to take a look at that. There's a lot of information in here. You've got HVACR fundamentals, specifically on condensing units, electronics. There's also self-paced trainings that are available on hermetic scroll and semi-hermetic product. A lot of information in there.
Just some other features that while we're in the app here, there is actually right up here on the top, there's a chat feature. There's also under support. There's a live chat you can email. You can be put in touch with a Copeland specialist, a local wholesaler if possible. Under resources, there's some other different software that you can link to. There is a box load calculator to go straight to the catalog. Back to OPI, folks that have been used to using our online product information over the years, it's still a link to here. Finally, over here on the More tab, you have phone numbers for the North American service line, which myself and ask for Eric if you call this number, by the way. He'll help you right away, 409-750. And then the Canadian service line. Also, there's some tours and some information here about terms used in Copeland Mobile. The biggest feature I wanted to hit here actually is this give feedback. By clicking on here, if you see something in Copeland Mobile that doesn't make sense to you, if there's a value that's missing or doesn't look right to you, you have the opportunity to click that button. It's going to bring up an email address to the administrators of Copeland Mobile, which is not us by any means. We're just users. And they will take a look at your issue and hopefully correct that or give you some type of feedback on why it looks the way it did. So.
All right. How we doing on time?
Doing great. Anybody know any jokes or something?
Oh,
like
man.
That?
Do we? So it looks like we covered everything. John, actually, we've talked about the where to buy feature when we did troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm.
Search publications is another one that's a heavy hitter. I know that refrigerants and lubricants that John touched on earlier, heavily used document, revised very often. So we would always ask that if you do save it off, that you might want to check back because it does get revised. As we all know, the industry continues to evolve, and this app continues to evolve to accept those new refrigerants, new applications. So you do have a direct link in the publication search to go straight to the application bulletins. If you want to look for something like specifically on compressors, semi-hermetic, ref, general air conditioning, this is a lot of information. And sometimes when you're actually in here, if we do like a ZP20, you can choose publications and it'll actually take you, I apologize for burning through that, but anyway, it'll actually take you to the application bulletin specifically for that product line. Incredibly helpful. So that's just another, there's a lot of features. I want to encourage everyone to become familiar with it. John and I over the years have used a lot of tools. And when I say tools, I mean, we were using catalogs, stuff that may seem archaic now based on what we're using digitally now, but man, if we come a long way with getting this information to the general public who need it. And my hat's off definitely to the folks that continue to develop this product and update it constantly.
Absolutely. I know you might have heard I did some training with Copeland in the past quite a while ago, but Copeland Mobile was just kind of being kicked around back then. This is the early 2000s. And, quite frankly, when you brought up a mobile app in some of the courses that we would give to contractors, it was just, not taken very seriously. At that time, there wasn't a lot of people out there using such a thing. Now, as I mentioned before, you're kind of at a disadvantage if you don't have this resource. It puts a lot in your hand and makes your phone a very powerful tool when you're out there on the job site. Just with a second or two that we have, or a few minutes left, I mean, we do have this search by conditions feature that is quite extensive. They could probably do a whole little webinar on these, but what you can do is you can choose a product. It says by condition. But what that is, what kind of system or what kind of compressor are we looking for? We might not know what kind of compressor is out there for what we need it for. But if James, do you have a good example here of
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. So I need a ton of air conditioning, 12,000 BTUs. I don't know what model I want, but I know that I'm in a ref medium temp application. So I need something that's going to operate in that area. I do want a scroll product. And what you're going to know is there is a lot, Copeland makes a lot of motor applications. So you want to look through here, and I'm going to go with 200, 265 single phase, 60 Hertz for my input power. And I have an old 404A system. So we'll just go with a 404A for the sake of conversation. Once you have those inputs in there, you can click submit. And on the right side of the screen, we'll populate models that fit that criteria. You can see 105% match, 106. Looks like we're slightly over the capacity that we asked for.
Yeah, you'll notice, as James just pointed out, the match feature here, which it actually ranks the different models as far as based on your criteria, what's the closest. These ones up here are very, very close to the criteria that James entered here. I'm not sure. I think you can go ahead and compare different models. Yeah. This is a PFJ and a PFV. And we'll go compare those. And it's showing here, there's actually some different ratings with these models.
Yeah, it's the voltage.
It's the voltage you'd see.
But the very useful tool if you want to do that. And you did notice when you go to search by condition, you have the option to do compressors by themselves, condensing units.
Yeah, let's do that again. Condensing units. Well, what if I wanted to use, like, find a condensing unit that uses a certain model? I could go ahead and choose I think the compressor is a compressor type. Yeah. Here. And I want a scroll compressor. And you can choose like basically whatever you have to search with, you can use as your criteria. As we showed before, it's going to come up with a list of different options based on what you've got your criteria wise. Service parts here, look at one thing we noticed is I don't think any of these parts are available, Jay. These are all,
none of those are.
The guts of a semi-hermetic compressor, which are not for sale, by the way.
But just to touch on it though, service parts, if you've got an idea of what you're looking for, there is some options in here to get you started. If you're looking for single rotor lock valves, contactor kits, it's going to ask you for some criteria, and you can go in and add what you would like: 3-pole, 24-volt control, how many amps you need it to be, and hit submit, and it will give you an offering of a Copeland contactor to fit that application.
All right. Well, that's pretty much most of the stuff we planned on covering today. Before we open it up to any questions or anything, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank on the marketing side, Vicki, Kate, and Lenny for providing the opportunity for us today. It's a tremendous opportunity for James and I.
Thank you.
Also on the IT side, David and Christian and Christy did an absolutely awesome job getting this all together, and it's very much appreciated. Great job.
Thank you to the audio video team. You guys are the best. Vicki, congratulations. We appreciate all you've done for us, for John and I, and getting us out here today. We're glad you could join us. So do we have time for questions today, Lenny?
We do.
All right.
All right, we had a few questions come in. First one, this one's going to be for you, James. On the example that you gave with the ZP compressor, it said that the height was different by roughly about ½ an inch.
Correct.
How would we know at that point if we have to alter the piping?
You would. That's a great question. So as soon as I saw that, and we did that, I'm not going to go back through and do the comparison. However, John mentioned that it was a little short.
0.4 of an inch.
0.4 of an inch. So you know
Right.
Yeah. So we know the footprint's correct. So we know that this thing's it's not going to be too tall or too wide. We're going to be able to set it in this unit. We're going to be able to bolt it down with the new grommets that come with it. As John showed that it does come with that and a new power cable. However, that 0.4 of an inch is going to come in where the suction line meets your your connection and where the discharge line meets it. So there would be some modifications that would have to be made to make up for that 0.4 of an inch. So
Let's just try to do it real quick. We're going to do it with the LXE model, right?
yeah, LXE.
Right. We'll go back to mechanical.
Man, you got there quick. There it was up at the top.
Like I said, this would be an opportunity to have 2 monitors here, but this is our original model drawing. It's going to give you that height.
Yep,
Right here.
15.16.
It's a great question,
yeah.
by the way. It's going to give you that height of the original model. And if I go back to this placement model, it's missing. No, just kidding. It's going to give you that one there as well.
Yeah. And they actually
It's
break
all-
it down from the base to the center of that,
Right.
both ports. So you can see there are modifications that have to be made. 0.4 of an inch could be a big deal. However, if you're that far into it, I'm sure those modifications could be made relatively.
I think there's a tubing stretchers that you can get.
Yeah, the tubing stretcher. Yeah. That's,
Anyway, that's a great question, and that is available. It's right there off the print in Copeland Mobile. Excellent.
great question.
All right. Next one is, can you cross-reference anything besides Copeland compressors?
Absolutely. We
Absolutely.
could show an example.
Well, let's do that, James.
Let's show them an example. I'll tell you what, and we
I got a
won't
model here for you. if
we
you like.
won't preload one. What we'll do is we'll actually go to cross-reference tab.
Okay. And you just want to go, okay, we'll just go compressor, competitor to Copeland.
Got it. So this comes up if you've got a competitive model.
Yeah. I said, I think, I'm not sure how this goes. If you actually know who made that model, that's helpful. There also is a model number you can select here, but for this example, let's go ahead and use let's go down here and pick on, hey, why not?
Tecumseh. Good call.
Let's pick on them today. So it's a Tecumseh model, and I happen to have that. It is A is an alpha, E is an echo, 4440Y. And you're noticing here, it's starting to populate models that have actually are entered in Copeland Mobile. So if you choose that -AA1A, and I'll do that here, that's the model we're looking for. And it's going to bring us over into this little hermetic model here. It's a ARE 40C4E-IA901. Once again, that's the service model. Let's hit next. And then we're going to go ahead and compare them. Submit, right? Keep going along here. All right. You guys are used to seeing this
Yeah.
here.
So we see we got red for significant, yellow for minor.
And sometimes you'll see over here on the competitive model, you might see some information that's missing just because it's not ours. But like I said, we do know a lot about their rating data. We see that capacity wise, it's very similar, rated to the same condition, refrigerant, current.
Pulls a little more
A
current.
little current here. So that gets me wondering here. So we'll get into that here mechanically. So we don't know, there's no dimensions listed for this Tecumseh. So we're kind of flying.
So
blind.
that means there would be some piping concerns possibly like
Yeah.
we talked about earlier. So
Yeah.
there might be some reconfigurations to do.
Yeah, and this here would get me going here. I have a RLA that's different, so I might have to look at I might have to take a look at that contactor and see in my wire sizing and make sure it can handle that. So that's all good stuff. And then we also have the physical representation of the diagram, wiring diagram, which we'll get off of that very quickly.
But
No
as-
question, nothing to see here,
nothing to
folks.
see here, but as demonstrated, it's just that easy to go in and cross-reference a competitive model, and it actually obsolete or competitive product replacements. So there are some options in there when you want to cross-reference.
And that's a lot. It's a living, breathing tool.
Yeah.
I mean, there's constantly new models, competitive models being added to that to help you convert that, those base competitive models over to Copeland.
Absolutely.
All right. Our next question has to do with the where to buy function. This person's asking, what is the difference when it says available versus in stock?
Great
Oh my God,
question.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the Z20, I think it actually,
Okay. Let's do that.
I believe that was shown. It was shown as available and in stock.
Yeah, the history feature is nice too. If you have anything you've looked at recently, it's going to bring up, so you can always do that. I'll let James go ahead and drive that.
All right. So let's go to where to buy. All right. Got our zip code punched in. It's going off. Look at that. It's already pulling it up. So we show contact and in stock. However, we can see it at the G.A. Larson in Dayton. They're showing it as available. So I will tell you what it means to me is typically you could contact Gustav Larson if they're the closest one to you and say, I'm seeing this. You're showing this as an available product. And it more than likely is. However, they would pull it from a branch, another G.A. Larson branch that might be, on the other side of Indiana or something. So they're showing it is available. So you could still contact them and find out how quickly you could get it. When you see it in stock, typically that means they've got it sitting on the shelf ready for you to come pick up. But when you see this, we always recommend, even if you see it in stock, make that phone call before you drive over there, because you want to make sure that the equipment is there. Just verify that. That's why the phone number is on there. And from the information that's provided to you, you can call them. If you notice, you can call them day or night. So
that's a good point, James.
We always recommend, I'm seeing it at Allied Supply in Dayton. I highly recommend you make a phone call there. If they've got it, they'll set it out for you and make arrangements for the pickup.
And something I like to add when I'm talking, somebody's asking me these questions. This information, as I understand, this availability is provided back to Copeland by the wholesaler. So if there's any, lag or any issue with that report, then that this data, it's always good to make the phone call. That's the bottom line.
Yep,
so you would always do that for that. So,
All right. This person here's a purchasing agent, works inside the office. Technician sends them a picture of a compressor with the label. What is the best way for them to search in Copeland Mobile to find out if it's available off that picture?
Well, like I said, if you mind,
go ahead.
If he's on site, he probably could go ahead and use the scanning feature of his on his phone to populate that search bar here with that model. If you scan that compressor model, or even a part number for that matter, it should bring that up into there. If somebody would send me a picture, I would just type that right in directly into this search feature. Whatever would be.
And that makes sense. If the scenario is they want them to do some research on it and they send them a photo, I would type that model number straight into this. And then what was behind that? So we've got the photo, we've got a model number added. So we're looking at information and they want to check availability of that particular model.
Let's just use that. Let's take it one. Say the ZS13.
Okay.
All right. We're looking to find one. Is that what we're looking to?
Yeah, we need to find a replacement for it. And this gets into like a whole nother, like if they've got a 118, like is shown here on the left-hand select model is ending in 118. The direct replacement is an 818. This is another source of questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why am I not getting a 118? The 118 tells us that's an OEM model. What we are going to offer would be an aftermarket replacement through Copeland's vast wholesale network coast to coast, and it would show up as an 818. However, what you can see here, and we hope that helps people understand, it is a direct replacement. It's the same compressor. The last three numbers just indicate that it is an aftermarket version.
I like this. When I get that question, I always bring up, like, if you picture how Copeland sells compressors to wholesalers, they're in individual boxes. So it actually has that compressor in a box has a different, what they call bill of material, or last three digits being the 818. When you're selling to an OEM, typically those compressors come in skid loads. So that actually would have a slightly different part number or a different bill of material. The compressor is the same on the outside and inside. It's just a different designation on who bought it.
And because we're going down this road, I know you probably got more questions, but as you'll notice on the left-hand side of this, the ZS13 actually offers bill of material and reference drawings. I don't know if we want to go down this road, but when you click on this, it gives you, these are the available options for this model. 118, 524, and it gets down here to the last one, which is the 818. We'll click on that. It'll actually pull up the bill of material for it. It shows you the dimensions, mounting, connection sizes, what it comes with, molded plug, true, and then at the bottom it actually gives you the option to look at it. You can pull up the drawing, and then it actually has the notes. So if you're curious, you can actually see what it comes with: 4-foot mounting, small terminal fence, molded plug, cap and label, which is probably the exact same as a 118. So don't forget that there is information on here if you're confused about the last 3 numbers of bill of material.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, like just here, if you hit that all, and when it shows all the bill of material, it's going to show them all listed here. And you'll notice the OEM versions, these are not available through a wholesaler, but you can see what the OEM version had and compare it to, get down here to the service models. Here's a whole, you can compare what your original model had to that, just like the function in the cross-reference did. So,
Yep.
Yep.
It's a lot of information in there on that. So we went a little overboard on that particular.
But generally speaking, the service models should, become more versatile. You be able to use in a more versatile setting where an OEM model is going to be specifically for a certain unit that a customer developed. So,
Right on. What else you got?
Last question here is, if somebody comes across a compressor where they can't read the model number, it's illegible, something happened out in the field, is there anywhere to search to be able to figure out what compressor is in that unit?
Is it a Copeland unit?
It doesn't specify.
All right,
on here.
sorry.
that's a good
I was
point.
ready to move into it.
if it's a Copeland unit, then you could actually search like this. Let's pick a unit here. I think James had some. I'm sorry to jump in.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
To say it's a Copeland unit, this M-line unit, it shows the compressor model that's used in it.
So we could have, if based on a Copeland unit model number, we could possibly come up with, we know what it was built with.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an option. If it was like another manufacturer's unit with a Copeland compressor in it, and there was some information missing from it, we could probably figure it out.
Yeah, there's some, like I said, I will call them some internal tips and tricks that would, you'd have to contact us to find those. But there's, with scroll models, there's some identification under the label sometimes that you could use. I know with the semi-hermetic models, the castings themselves have some identifiers on them.
Yeah.
We've had several people that have been with us long enough that, especially on the semi-hermetic side, they can look at a body and tell you what it is.
Yeah.
So
That's impressive.
yeah, we still have some, all the technology we're showing here today, it still comes back to just some people just knowing,
Yeah.
so, but.
And if you run into that, where that information, might not be a Copeland unit.
Yeah.
There's
Call this number, ask for Eric, you're good to go. So hopefully that's helpful.
Is that all our questions for today?
That was all the questions we had for today.
Well, I know we are going to have some closing. However, like John mentioned earlier, there is a huge team of people that have helped make this possible. We hope that you enjoyed what we've been able to present today, and we encourage you to get the app on your phone, get the desktop version. Huge fans of it, and we hope that everything we provided today was helpful, and that'll be it for me.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, James and John. We appreciate your help with this webinar today. So that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you all for your participation. Any questions that we were unable to answer during our time today will be answered via email. As a reminder, a few days after this live event, you can access this presentation on demand or view previous webinars at e360hub.copeland.com/webinars. And you'll also receive an email in the next few days with a link to this recorded event. On behalf of Copeland, thank you for attending today's webinar. Information and registration will be available soon for our next upcoming event. We hope you can join us again. Thank you all.